Hi everyone, welcome to the first ever Sports News Blitz betting podcast. We're excited about the Championship starting and we're excited about the Premier League coming back as well. That's what we're going to talk about today. But first of all, let's get the intros out of the way. I'm the managing editor of SIP Media Solutions, and I also work very closely with the Sports News Blitz editorial team. Our key guy for our betting content on there is George Dempsey. George, tell the guys who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so thanks, Si. As Si says, my name is George Dempsey. I've been with Sports News Blitz since the early days, since it got going. I'm meant to be the betting expert, apparently. We'll find out today, maybe. As Si says, exciting time that the Premier League season is about to start. The Championship season is about to start as well, although I should say, as the only person in the chat who supports a Premier League team, I don't care about the Championship quite as much.
Okay. Let's get that out of the way. I'm excited about the Championship because I'm a West Brom fan. George, put everyone out of their misery and tell everyone what terrible team you support.
Oh, well, I support Leeds United, unfortunately, for everyone,
including
myself.
So that's exciting, and let's just get into this. Like I read a lot about. I've personally been involved in betting for a long time. I've worked on with the guys that worked on Sporting Life, and then worked on Sky Sports, and worked very closely with Sky Bet. George, just give us a bit of an overview of your betting career so far, because it's been pretty varied, and you've worked with a lot of different brands.
Yeah, I have. So I mean, it started, if I could say, before I turned 18, which I think you already know. Back in the day, long story short, you didn't have to provide an ID if you wanted to log on and place a bet, which is a bit naughty. So I was betting from a young age. It just interested me. I'm quite boring in that I probably prefer the numbers and the spreadsheets and all of the bits of betting that just aren't fun, not the sitting there and watching the goals go in. I'm more head in the numbers. But I've worked in the betting industry since I was 18, 19. Started out with a company called Tipster. I've from there worked for various kind of private clients, stumbled into some work with syndicates and lots of odd jobs relating to that on the side, which eventually led me into writing, which was not what I was qualified in, not what I was initially interested in. But it just kind of naturally overlapped, having to write about and justifying the betting side of what I do. And here I am.
Brilliant. And if you can just rock back a little bit for me, George, I want to talk about the US. Let's see what shirt you're wearing there.
Okay. So I've got a little collection. I've got LAFC. So the MLS released a little retro collection a little while ago, which was LAFC. I've got another one, which is San Jose Earthquakes. And there's a Sporting KC one as well, or Kansas City Wizards, as it was back then. My main area of focus is anything US, really, as much as I do know about the Premier League. It's basketball, it's soccer, and the other US sports.
That's a good point, actually. We just need football fans to understand we're going to call it soccer. You can't see, I've got like a map of the USA above my screen above me. You can see a lot of stuff behind me. We do. I work for the rugby paper, the cricket paper, non-league football. So this Sports News Blitz betting podcast is going to cover a bit of everything. I think that we're going to make it varied. Yeah. George is an expert. NBA is another one that you're very hot on, isn't it, George?
Yeah. NBA is a favourite of mine. Again, head in the numbers, love analysing it, love watching it as well. Just end to end, such an exciting game. So yeah, hopefully we get a chance to cover that as well.
And it's important to say that George is representing the proper betting expert. I'm the absolute dumb betting expert, the person that loves betting and reads and consumes advice from people like George before placing a bet. So that's what we're going to provide with our betting content. If you go to Sports News Blitz right now, George's Premier League preview is up. We're talking about the title winners and the relegation contenders, and that's what we're going to get onto now, because that's enough of an intro. You know what we're going to do. We are going to cover all sorts. We want reaction, give us some comments on YouTube if you think the predictions are rubbish. Hold us to account. Get involved. We want you to get involved. Drop us an email if you want to become a writer. We pretty much run loads of internships and placements. We've got partnerships with universities all over the world, but we've got big aspirations to go to America. We know Americans love the English accent. So we're kind of like covering American sports and British sports, and obviously the Premier League is a huge global brand. So let's kick off then, George. We're gonna discuss who's going to win the Premier League title. I'm going to have my thoughts, but you're here to provide the expert view. We know Liverpool are coming in as the defending champions, and I know you. I mean, it's not they're the bookies' favourites, but yeah. Let's start with them. Do you think they can? Do you think they can be? They were the hunters last season. Do you think they've got what it takes to defend the title?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's one thing to maybe come from a position where nobody necessarily expects you. I think they were third or fourth favourites, 6-1, I think it was. So they were, by definition, an outsider. I think a lot of people maybe didn't expect them to hit the ground running under Slot like they did. There was always the danger that it was going to be a massive transition. And that just didn't really happen, did it? Which obviously speaks to how good a coach he is. And he's in a similar situation now. The core of the team might still be there, but the kind of the creativity and the way Alexander-Arnold slotted into it, and Frimpong's come in as a very different fullback. He has to fill that void, and they have to find out how they're going to use him. And the attack as well, obviously, is a little bit of movement there. So it depends how you kind of mesh those players together in attack. But the bones of it are still there. So I think it's fair that they're favourites.
And what odds are they? What odds are they? What's the best odds you can get on them?
Oh, if I could pull up the latest odds. So at the moment, the best you'll find is 7-5. So 2.4 if you do deal in decimal odds. I guess it's not really a tempting price. Kind of hard to argue. They won it. They're a good team. On paper, they've added a lot of quality. They spent a lot of money for once, especially with Wirtz. So for what they may have lost, they potentially added even more. So I think they're justified favourites, but maybe not the best price to bet on.
A little counter I'd add to that is, having watched Liverpool a lot last season, the main difference between Slot and Klopp, I think, was his in-game substitutions, his ability to change tactics depending on what was happening in the game. Slot was he liked his favourites. He kind of stuck to what he'd stuck to, and whereas Slot seemed to be very adept. However, everyone's had a look at him now. He's had his first season. You've got more analysts than you know what to do with the Premier League teams, especially the Arsenal and Man Cities. They're all going to have had a whole summer and a whole pre-season to evaluate how Liverpool play, how to counteract it. So that's where I get the Liverpool favourites. I don't think they're going to win the league again. My personal shout is Man City. We'll get onto that later because we'll come to them. We're going to work through, and then we're going to put our heads on the line and say we think we're going to win the league. But I'll give my thoughts on that later. But I just think it was brilliant the way he took over from Klopp. It was unexpected. It could have gone badly, but it didn't. And he's got to take a lot of kudos to that. However, the second favourites are Arsenal. Where do you see them? Because this feels like it's a big season for Arteta in particular, right?
Well, if he doesn't win something, he gets sacked. End of. And you can't argue that. No one can argue that. He's had a couple of opportunities now. I guess the first season, it's never fair to judge. Even last season, maybe there are some extenuating circumstances. But the biggest problem, the thing that everyone has always said, and Arsenal fans have said, and the club must know themselves, is just go sign a bloody striker, a good one who will just kick the ball in the net lots. Have they found that? I don't know. I don't really know, because the last time we saw Gyökeres in England, it was, albeit a good championship player, right? Just some bloke kicking about for Coventry in the second tier. And the Portuguese league is as good as Porto, Benfica, Sporting may be. It is absolutely worlds away from the Premier League. So that's kind of one of a few variables with Arsenal. And there are variables for every team, I think, this season which makes it one of the more interesting title races for a long time. But, if Arsenal can hit the ground running, and I think their fixtures aren't too bad in that regards, and Gyökeres does take to the league and he is scoring, then that's arguably the only thing that is missing from their game. To put a stat out that I remember, I think they had a +14 expected goal differential, a +14 better expected goal differential than any other team in the league last season. But I think they drew 14 matches, which can only come down to just not putting the ball in the back of the net enough.
Yeah, and talking about odds, then what's the best odds that you've seen around for Arsenal? There'll be a lot of Arsenal fans that think it's their year. They will think he's the right guy. We'll see. I'm not so sure he is with the quality of Premier League defenders these days. There's a very big question mark, but let's see when the talking stops and they get on the pitch. But yeah, what are the best odds that you've seen floating around for Arsenal?
Yeah, for sure. So it's generally they are 9-4. That's the case with Bet365, who I think were the best. It's a little bit bigger than Liverpool, obviously 3.25 if you're dealing in decimal. A more interesting price, but again, is it really tempting enough? Not sure. Not sure any of the prices are that tempting, but that's just this season maybe.
Well, talking of the most tempting price, I've written a Premier League preview myself, and I've stuck myself to the massive Manchester City because I saw them available at 3-1. You might be able to get better odds than that. And I just think that's an insane price because you've got Guardiola. I think sometimes the battle he will have had over the years is to keep his team motivated. When you're that good and when you're that dominant, they like it when there's a challenge. So I think they'll have that in the camp. And you've touched it in your piece, and I've touched it in my piece. We all know, I mean, he's world class, but Rodri is just having Rodri on the pitch and not having Rodri on the pitch he's one of the most influential players in world football, right?
Yeah, he's amazing. And I think that is obviously the biggest factor. That's what derailed them the most. And when you build a team around one player so much, like Guardiola has done many times, did it with Messi at Barcelona. When you build an entire system around one player and that player is out, obviously it's going to make life harder. I think that the second biggest issue is obviously what was then left around them. And I know De Bruyne is an amazing creative player still, and he missed a chunk of the season, which is another issue in itself. But the ages of some of the players that were left around them, coupled with kind of a new player, someone like Nico Gonzalez, newer, younger, less experienced player at that level coming in. And we always see Guardiola players maybe look their best in the second season once they've got their head properly around what he wants to do. So I think there are just a combination of factors that all kind of came at once, and they were all in the midfield. And they've got some world-class defenders there and a great goalkeeper, and obviously Erling Haaland and Phil Foden and everyone else. But everything in between that was just absolutely rubbish, in part through no fault of their own, but it just exposed them too much. This season, I think they've refreshed it. They've obviously gone out and got fresh legs and young players, which to your point, helps having that turnover of player. There's going to be no problem with motivating them. They're going to want to impress in their first season in the Premier League. And I think they'll be much more equipped, even if they do have games where maybe Rodri does have to miss out or he picks up another knock again. I think they've got the legs in midfield this time to deal with that pair.
I think one of the keys, I was picking my Premier League fantasy squad, and I've put Rodri was pretty much the first name on the team sheet because he's by and large he's seen as a defensive midfielder, right? But he's one of the major things that he does at Man City is tries to play really direct through balls to Haaland. Split the defence and get Haaland running. We use his physicality, and Man City were missing that. They were missing that. We know that they try and pass it around and go down the flanks, but Rodri just doesn't mess around, and he's actually a goal threat as well. He's given that freedom to go forward. So I just think, for me, that's why Man City they've been pretty shrewd in the market as well. Ederson, there were some question marks over him. I know you quite like what they've done in the goalkeeper transfer market, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think obviously James Trafford had a fantastic season for Burnley, and I don't want to upset any Burnley fans or show any Leeds bias. I think they were a million miles behind Leeds in terms of quality, despite both teams finishing on 100 points. And a massive part of that was Trafford, because even when they just didn't really turn up, they just kind of ground games out, which you have to do sometimes at that level. Trafford just made unbelievable saves. You know, he could not be called on for 89 minutes, and maybe Burnley are winning 1-0, and there's situations where he's just pulled an absolute worldie out of the top corner or something. So he looked an absolute class above all season. And I think he absolutely belongs at that level. And I think he should just slot straight in and be Man City's number one for me. And he's a future England number one as well, definitely.
Brilliant. So before we move on from Man City, talk to me about their odds. I've seen 3-1, which definitely, when you're talking about title winners, you're looking at putting a big amount of money and bet responsibly, or only bet money that you can afford to lose. But these are bets that you're putting on for the whole season. So you're looking at a lumpy sum that it's gonna last you the whole season. But what's the best you've seen around for Man City to win?
So you can get better than 3-1. Surprisingly, it does go as high as, I think, in the 7-2, 7-2. Yeah, so 4.5 decimal odds. And I think, that's that. Now we're into a price that's a bit more interesting. One, because you say that there's more meat on the bones. If you're maybe a serious bettor who's got to throw a load of money at something, and you've accounted for that, and you can afford to lose that, then you might see a bit more value in the shorter prices and think, okay, Liverpool are the likely winner. If you're a more recreational punter, I guess now we're getting into the prices that are a little bit more worthwhile. You stick 20 quid on Man City now, who enjoy their games throughout the season. Come the end, maybe you've got the best part of 100 quid. And I think the thing with them is it's been rare, for them to not be favourite. It's been so long. I think it was 5 or 6 years maybe. We went where they were just priced as the favourites to win everything. So the fact that they're now an underdog as well, kind of, for me, as somebody might look for like a bit of value, kind of gives them, they take on a different meaning now, so that they're technically an underdog. And I think that's an interesting role to see someone like Man City in. I think they might embrace that. And it's a really nice price, really.
Great. Okay. So talking of good prices, I want to have a chat about Chelsea, because going back to my fantasy team, I've ended up putting 3 Chelsea players in there, and those 3 players are Cole Palmer, Delap, and João Pedro. Now, Palmer and Delap know each other from Man City days. They've got an incredible understanding. They came up through the academy. I think those sort of partnerships for me really come across on the pitch. You think down the years of the Omri and Bergkamp, the sort of like role of the ones that Rooney partnered up with Man United, and the Cole and Dwight York. If you've got some like chemistry there, I think that's huge. So how seriously can we take Chelsea as they're good odds, but can we take them seriously, or are they proper outside bets?
I think they're the 4th and final team that we're covering here, or at least seriously considering as they could conceivably win the title. After Chelsea, I think you're looking at the likes of Newcastle, Aston Villa, Tottenham and Man U for some reason. And then we're really into like speculative bet, sorry. So I think, they can. They're obviously outsiders for a reason. I don't really understand what Chelsea's approach has been for years now. And I wasn't totally convinced when they brought Maresca in either, because I know Leicester fans, even when they were promoted with him, didn't necessarily love him or what he kind of produced on the pitch. But you can see where he's going with it, and as the season went on, they're starting to look more and more convincing. He's kind of got a fairly settled team in place. I think he's figured out who he likes, who he doesn't, and obviously added to that with some very good players. I see your point about like Palmer and Delap maybe having a good connection. They're both kind of young and fearless as well, and you could see them just maybe going out and just playing football and not really caring where they are or who they're against, and just having a laugh together, and doing damage to teams. So yeah, I think they've added some really good players in areas that they needed to add. Nicholas Jackson was just not good enough. Obviously, Nkunku, not good enough, not fit enough, whatever his problem is. So adding Delap, I think, will be beneficial. Yeah, even in games where they do play well, he's obviously going to benefit massively from Palmer. Palmer's going to find him. In games where they don't play so well on the road, and you have to dig in a little bit and just maybe pinch a goal, which title winners always have to do. Again, Delap gives them that option. He's someone who can do that, and they didn't have that before. So I think they're definitely a good outside bet. Yeah, it would take things to go wrong, but you can point to Arsenal and say maybe Gyökeres doesn't fit, maybe it all goes wrong for Arteta, maybe Man City, for once, maybe Guardiola doesn't get it right, maybe this midfield doesn't come together, maybe they have teething problems for a month or two, which sets them back. And Liverpool, he has to build a somewhat new attack. Could yet feature Isak. We didn't really mention him, did we? That would obviously massively tip things their way. But again, let's see if that actually gels together. So it would take a lot to fall their way. But yeah, they might have enough goals in them to punish teams if they do slip up.
So let's push you before we wrap up on the title winner here. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say my money is going to be on Man City, and then I think I'm going to have an each way bet on Chelsea as well, just because I kind of want it to happen. I want something different. I like new winners. So that's me. What are your tips?
Yeah, I think it's already a different season. I think there's so many variables, and it will be a good watch. As much as I don't necessarily love the price, like I said, from maybe like a value point of view, I'm not going to argue against Liverpool being favourites. If you want to go bet on them, I think the players they've brought in will take. I think Wirtz will be brilliant, and I kind of trust in Slot. And they've just got a good thing going there. The club, the fans, the relationship between them all. I could see them winning it again. But I agree with you on the outside bet. It would have to be Chelsea. I need to see a bit more from Arsenal. I need to see Man City get back on track, maybe. But Chelsea, as a each way bet, or just something that you just throw a few quid on speculatively, for sure. Yeah, they've got a chance.
Right, nice one, George. So there you go. That's who we think is going to win the league. That's who we think is going to be battling at the top end of the table. Now we go down to the bottom end of the table, where we can talk about Leeds United, which is good. So they obviously came up as champions. Like you say, they were better. They did deserve to be champions, and Burnley came up with them. We've got Sunderland in there. I've had a look at this, George, and look, you're a Leeds United fan. I live here in Leeds, but I'm a West Brom fan, so I'm fairly impartial in this. But I do think Leeds are the outstanding candidate of the three to survive. Let's just get that out there. I'm not saying they're going to flourish. They might do, but when we're looking about who's going to get relegated. So my personal feeling is, even if Burnley and Sunderland have a good start, which historically they will do, they'll get some momentum, they'll win some home games, the fans will be high. Eventually the Premier League just grinds you down. The quality, and you've got teams like Palace that have got match winners everywhere. They've got Eze. Well, they might not have him, but they've got Eze and Mateta, and just even bang average Premier League teams have got worldy match winners now. So to come into the league is very hard to survive. So what's your gut feel on Leeds United before we get into the other two?
I think it's harder to kind of nail your colours to the mast with relegation than it is the title favourites, because we've seen they're good established teams. They have great players already. They have a lot of things in place. So for the teams come up, it's very, very hard. You take that risk of spending lots and lots of money, knowing that less than 12 months from now you could be selling off all those players and trying to save your club from financial ruin. At this moment in time, if you force me to say what would happen to all three teams, as it stands, I think they probably go down. But that's only because I know, Leeds, for example, are openly in the market for another 4 players, and they are attacking players, a left winger, a striker, and an attacking midfielder, as well as cover at fullback, maybe. So it really depends on the kind of the finishing touches these teams add. I think as it stands, they would go down, but there's obviously more work to be done. And if you're looking at the bigger picture, I think you can start to poke holes in teams like Brentford, West Ham, Wolves, which hasn't been so easy in previous seasons, and start to make a case for if one or even two of those teams coming up do hit the ground running and they do, recruit well and score goals, then yeah, we could have an interesting season where a couple of established teams finally slip out.
Yeah, I think the two for me, Sunderland and Leeds, they've got the potential. They've got the fan bases. Turf Moor is not the sort of like scary kind of venue that it is to go to Ellen Road or the Stadium of Light. So that's a factor. I think Leeds they've got the financial muscle if needed to make some signings in January as well. I've actually recommended a treble, which is Burnley, Sunderland, and Brentford to go down, because I think Brentford have what they've done this summer. It's crazy. I guess I just can't quite believe they've kind of gone down the road that they've gone down. They've lost their manager, which is the biggest one, by the way. But then their two key players have gone. So, what your thoughts say? It feels like they've really got a season of struggle ahead, potentially, haven't they?
Yeah, I think so. You'd think so. It's not, like you said, not just losing those two players. It's Thomas Frank and the effect he had, because what they'd stumbled onto there was a very good manager with a system that worked, with players that fit it perfectly. So, Mbeumo and Visser aside, and Norgard as well. Norgard obviously very important at times in the midfield over the past few years. Those players aside, there were some very important pieces of the system, of Thomas Frank's system. So as well as losing that quality, is the entire team now going to work as well anyway under a different manager? And that manager is Keith Andrews. As a Leeds fan, I won't go there. But he's someone who, okay, I will go there. Someone who hopefully wouldn't get in trouble. Someone who wasn't even up to standard as a pundit and has spent the last however many months telling people how to take a corner kick should probably not be managing a Premier League team that might be scrapping for their lives. And, they're going to have a chunk of money to go and try and get players to replace these players. But without being mean, Brentford are not a big club. Keith Andrews is not an exciting name as manager, and everyone can see they're going to be in a relegation scrap. So who do they get? I don't know. They're going to have to be very smart with their recruitment. I think they're in trouble.
It's going to be interesting. I think Brentford are going to be tough, and I think you touched on this as well. I think sometimes you realise you can literally take one player out, like we discussed with Rodri. Wolves could be another one, because how many times did Cunha just produce a piece of magic, that got them out of trouble, and so Wolves are going in there. Do you feel like out of those two, if you were to choose, do you feel like that's going to be the bottom four? Do you feel like they're really going to be the ones that you mentioned? West Ham, I'm not so sure about that with Graham Potter, and they've got a good playing squad if you can get them going. But are those the sort of four that we think are going to be down there and sort of tough season?
Yeah. I think the bottom three, Brentford and Wolves, are the obvious candidates. The only reason I really mention West Ham is because it's fine saying they've got this and that, but we haven't really seen it come together yet. West Ham fans aren't thrilled with what they saw last season. I do think they have got good players. As long as you've got someone like Jared Bowen on the pitch, you've always got a chance of scoring a goal and winning a match. And I do think Graham Potter is a good manager. But sometimes things just don't work. So, if they were to maybe get off to a bad start and the pressure was on him, and we've seen clubs react in silly ways, especially in the Premier League, then you could see a way for things to unravel, even if it's not as likely as someone like Brentford struggling. But overall, the three that have come up, and Brentford and Wolves are the really obvious ones. Replacing Cunha, like you say, you can't do it. You cannot replace him. You cannot replace Mbeumo. Clubs at that end of the table just don't get players of that quality. So unless they somehow recruit a gem who hits the ground running, yeah, they're going to be worse this season.
Okay, great. So we're just going to, as a final touching point, we're going to talk about two teams that were in the relegation battle last season, which feels wonderful to say, and that's Tottenham and Man U. Now they've arguably, Tottenham have kind of done something about it, sacked the Europa League winning manager, which I think was the right decision. He, to feel like when we asked about what season he'd had, and they were like, "It's a brilliant season. We've won a trophy." I'm not sure that many Tottenham fans would agree with that. But where do you see them? Obviously, Man United as well. It looks like they've kind of looking a bit better under Amorim, but they still look a bit like clueless to me. Where are you thinking those two? Are they going to be pushing for the top four? Where do you think?
No. In terms of Man U, no, definitely not.
Luke Shaw says they're going to win the league.
Well, Luke Shaw can say what he wants. I think Luke Shaw will be at Man U another year at best. I don't see them competing for the top four, and that's not a slight against Amorim. I think they have actually got a very good manager this time, who they should settle on and give time, even if this season isn't, great and you're competing and you're winning trophies. As long as you can see there's some sort of marked progress, I think stick with him for a few years. I just think they need to do too much to the squad. Just some of the signings, the overspending, just the general mismanagement of the club on and off the pitch. You don't fix that overnight. So I think they've just got themselves into too big of a hole to climb out of in one season. And they probably don't have enough money knocking about to recruit the number of players that they actually need. So they'll be better. They're obviously not a relegation contender. Are they going to get top four? No. But even last season, when they were a mess, we did see occasions where they just pull things out of the bag because they've got players like Fernandes, and now they've got someone like Cunha and Mbeumo. So they've got match winners, and it is a massive club, and they'll do well at home. So it wouldn't shock me if they kind of found a way to squeeze into that top 7 or 8, and maybe they pick up a European place.
It does have to be noted, we are doing these predictions without knowing what's going to happen in the end of the transfer window as well. Like you touched on with Leeds, Isak could go to Liverpool. You would like to think that most teams are getting quite settled, but we know that there's going to be quite a lot of movement between now and the end of the month. Let's just have a little chat about Tottenham. We don't think Man United are going to pull up any trees, but Tottenham have got a good manager there, but they've had a good manager many times. Do you think Thomas Frank's the right man?
Yeah, again, it's just guessing, isn't it? Until we see it on the evidence of Brentford, he is a good manager, and he's already done pretty well with a much lesser group of players. So it's the same variables as a lot of teams, like the new players that they bring in. How do they settle? How quickly do they settle? How do the players that are already there take to his system? I'll be honest, I haven't really seen them in pre-season yet. So I'm not too, in a good position to comment on how it's all coming together. But just for the Frank factor, and also the fact that some of the teams that we haven't spoke about so far, your Newcastle, Aston Villas, who are kind of having their own issues and might not have as good a season, or even a Nottingham Forest, who, doing fantastically well, but let's see how they do now that they've got to balance the Premier League and the Champions League, and Europe, for the first time. So yeah, a team could sneak into the top 4. Tottenham, possibly. I think they're in the same category as Man U until I see something come together and they make a little bit more progress. They've got enough there to maybe kind of trouble the European places, but I'm not going to say they'll break the top 4, because I think the top 4 will be the 4 we've already discussed on this video, and no one else.
Okay, great. So on Sports News Blitz, look, we're going to be doing weekly betting tips. We're going to be advising We've got a guy called the Bookie Basher who does looks at selected matches over a weekend. We'll probably be doing some championship tips as well. But George will be part of our Premier League ongoing betting thing, and we're likely to do some videos each week, so we'll be able to reflect and probably change as we go week to week and give guidance and advice. But let's just summarise then, George. So you've got Liverpool for the league, but the odds are terrible. So you're not exactly sticking your head out there. I'm going to push you on who's going to be the bottom three, because you can obviously put that in a little treble.
To sit on the fence a little bit, I'm going to give to us. So at the time of recording, the bottom three should be the three that came up. There's still work to be done there. The one that I think is cemented in there is Burnley. The style just doesn't. It's not going to work in the Premier League. They'll be under too much pressure. They'll concede goals. They'll go down.
Yeah.
If Sunderland and Leeds can finish the window well and recruit, a couple of quality, two or three more quality players to add to what they've got, and then things do go as we've kind of suggested they might for Brentford and Wolves, I don't think it's impossible that two teams stay up, Leeds and Sunderland. But I think, Leeds, without being biased, I think Leeds have probably the better chance on paper, just having been there before and just experienced how ruthless and horrible and unenjoyable it is. I don't think Sunderland fans, as much right as they've got to be excited about all the money they're spending, they haven't seen what the Premier League is yet. So, but I think they could stay up for sure.
Great. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up there. That's great. And apologies if you heard a baby crying during this video. It was actually a Man United fan next door crying that we're not tipping them to win the league. So, you suck it up, Man United fans. We're all going to watch, and hopefully you'll have a better season. But, sorry, Mr. Luke Shaw, you're not winning the league. But, thanks, George, for joining me. And you can head to the website and check out George's full preview. Mine's on there as well, but that's just me talking rubbish, And we've got a YouTube channel. We're going to be doing more betting videos as we go along, but there's tons of other videos to consume. There's cricket, there's rugby, there's all sorts going on. And like we've said, if you like, sports journalism, we're a network that people like myself and George and a couple of other experienced people mentor young people that are trying to get into the industry. COVID has changed things. You don't need a studio to record podcasts. We've proven that. I'm sat here in my garden room. George is in his front lounge, but it looks a bit. Is it front lounge, George? Where is it?
Oh, I call it my office. It's just the second bedroom. Yeah.
So we're a young brand, but we're feeling our way into this kind of like landscape. And so get in touch if you want to get involved in any capacity. We're on all the social media channels as well: Instagram, TikTok. Thankfully, that's nothing to do with me because I'm 50 and way too old to do anything like that. So thanks for joining me, George, and catch up on the next. We'll catch up on the next betting video we do.
Yeah, no problem. Look forward to it.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.